Well, kia ora, good afternoon everybody. Can I just say welcome back to 2024, and I hope you've all had a good break and a good rest yourselves, and certainly we have as our caucus, but we're now back at work and ready to go. And as you're probably getting a sense of, the mood in our team is really positive. We had a very full-on period of time before Christmas, and we're reconnecting with that work program as we all head back into work now. So with that, happy to take your questions.
Prime Minister, will you attend the Māori Koe on Saturday at Tūrangawaewae?
I won't be attending. We'll be represented by Tama Potaka and also Dan Bidwar, who's the chair of the Māori Affairs Select Committee. But importantly, I've actually got to know the Māori King over the last 2 years. We've had a number of engagements. We had one actually earlier this week, and we'll catch up also again at Waitangi as well.
Why won't you attend yourself?
Well, it's not actually a political event per se. It's actually not for politicians. We are not front and centre in those conversations. It's an opportunity for Māoridom to come together. I'm very supportive of it. I think it's a good idea to be able to think about where is Māori going out to 2040 and beyond. And so that's the nature of the conversations that have been happening, is feeding into the big event and the big hui on Saturday. But as I said, I caught up with the Māori King earlier in the week, and I'll catch up again with him and other iwi leaders over the course of Waitangi as well. Sorry?
Did he raise his concerns with you at that meeting?
Well, we had a very constructive meeting. We've actually got to know each other, over the last 2 years. We've had a number of engagements. I've always enjoyed them. It's always very positive, very constructive. But I've also been meeting with iwi leaders over the last 12 to 18 months, quietly anyway, individually or in small groups. Yesterday was another good example. We came to Christchurch. I had 2 hours with Ngāi Tahu. We talked about the areas where we could work together and some of the challenges that we see across Māoridom that we need to work together in partnership around.
The Māori King and iwi leaders raising their concerns directly with you?
Well, we got into a conversation about actually how do we improve outcomes, and actually in a spirit of a government that believes in localism and devolution, that is where we can really align about actually delivering improved outcomes for Māori up and down the country. And so a lot of our focus has been on those issues. How do we get Māori education rates up? How do we get better health outcomes? How do we deliver less impact, better economic outcomes for Māori? And so those are the things that we've been talking about in those meetings.
Nairo Simmons says that actually this was the first time you met the Kingitanga.
No, I've met with the King several times before this.
So how did that meeting come to be?
Just a regular series of meetings, that I basically planned last year. As I said, I've been meeting with iwi leaders across the country. The King and I last had lunch together at Koronehana, and at that point we said we'd catch up again as well. And so part of that process was before the election, but it was part of meeting that commitment.
The purpose of the hui is to sort of organise a strategic response to the coalition's action. So why do you think that you don't need to be there?
I'll just say to you, I think it's actually a bit broader than that. It's actually about a conversation about where is Māori going and actually how Māori get ahead in the next decades. And so there's some quite big, broad, strategic conversation that will take place in that hui. And so the politicians, as I said to you, are not front and centre in this. They're more than welcome to attend, as you've heard from the King himself. But importantly, it's there to listen and to participate and to hear what the views are.
Do you agree with your Cabinet colleague Shane Jones that it's going to be a monumental moan session?
No, I think it's actually I've been very supportive of it from when it was first announced, and in fact I had a conversation with the Māori King before it was even announced around the hopes for the hui.
Some of the motivation, though, for organising this hui was out of concern for policies that the coalition government plans to roll out. So do you not think it is important to at least be there to hear what people have to say?
Well, we do. We have government representation there, and with Tama Potaka and also with Dan Bidwar, as I said, chair of the Select Committee. And importantly, we are going to be a government that's going to get things done for Māori and for non-Māori in this country. And I've been relentlessly clear about that from when I became the leader of the National Party, frankly. And that's the conversation that we've been having with iwi leaders and will continue to have. And I look forward to those discussions, and I look forward to what comes out of the hui, because I think we want to make sure we've got a good program of actually partnership that we can work together on in the coming years.
Do you think Tama Potaka and Dan Bidwar are going to go there and basically, have to kind of speak on behalf of the coalition government
Well-
and maybe cop some flack for some of the policies that ACT and New Zealand First are championing?
Well, I want to be really clear. Again, understand what the hui is actually about. It's not for politicians. The politicians aren't front and centre in this. This is about bringing Māoridom together, as has happened a few times in our past, but to actually have a broader conversation about where is Māori going. And actually, when I think about the breakout sessions that are going to happen, the topics of conversation, they're all really fantastic topics. And we may disagree with that, and we may have differences of opinion about how best to deliver those outcomes, but we are there to engage. But the politicians are not front and centre in the hui. Just be really clear about that.
Did you meet with the Māori King on Monday because you chose not to go to the hui on Saturday? Was that kind of the alternative?
No, it was just as I said, I've got to know the Māori King through a number of engagements, and the last commitment I'd had with him was I'd love to catch up. We were doing that very informally, and so we'd set that in place last year, and it was good to have a broader conversation than just actually the hui on Saturday. We were talking about other issues about how we actually can improve the outcomes for Māori.
The Israeli Prime Minister has said that he would continue his action in Gaza regardless of the outcome of the International Court case, The Hague. Would you throw your support behind Israel abiding by whatever the outcome of that case is?
Yeah, look, we've said from the beginning we respect that Israel has a right to defend itself, but it has a huge obligation to make sure that it is compliant with international law. And so while that case is ongoing, we're monitoring and watching that closely. But the reality is we expect Israel's response to be fully compliant with international law.
Right. And therefore fully compliant with what the outcome of that case is?
Again, there's an obligation on a state like Israel to make sure that it's compliant with law.
Should we understand the decision of New Zealand to sign itself up as one of those 10 countries behind the White House statement? Is that an indication that we're pivoting towards a more American-aligned foreign policy in the Middle East?
Well, look, New Zealand, with respect to the Red Sea, is what you're talking about? Yes. I mean, what I'd say to you is that New Zealand has had a long history, actually, of being a small trading nation, and as a consequence, freedom of navigation, the adherence of international law, commercial shipping, as an export country, is really important to us. And so we've had a long-standing commitment, even with personnel in that part of the world, making sure that those laws are upheld. So for us, it's about our values, and it's about the fact that we think that's important, and so it's appropriate that we join in that statement.
Concerned by the fact that we're one of only 10 countries signed up to that, and there are no there's only one Arab state signed up.
Again, we have an independent foreign policy. We act in New Zealand's interests. New Zealand's an export-leading country that relies on adherence to the international law. In this case, we're being really clear that the actions of the Houthi are illegal, and we want to make sure we make that statement very clear.
Race relations in New Zealand, is that the elephant in the room for this government?
I disagree. I think a big issue that we have across this country right now, and you've seen it, even in conversations I've had over summer still, is the economic performance of New Zealand. Our ability to build a bigger economic engine that actually supports all of our ambition and aspiration, that actually enables us to have the public services we want, the investments and infrastructure that we need. That is the number one issue that is of great concern across the country to all New Zealanders. And if we can work hard on that, that's our number one job for this year.
Are you walking into it blindly though, because we saw last week finally taking High Court action, you've got the Māori King calling a nationwide hui, Ngāi Tahu tossing up whether it wants to go down legal action the legal action route as well with the Ngāi Tahu representation bill, things like that. Are you aware of the growing discontent, and are you concerned?
Oh, well, I have had dialogue and have been working really hard to build relationship with iwi and Māori leaders up and down this country for some time, as I've explained. In my conversations, we're finding common ground and common values of where we want to work together in order to improve outcomes for Māori and also non-Māori. What I'd say to you is, yes, there's a number of court cases, there'll be a number of Waitangi tribunals, as there has always been under successive governments. But our view is we want to work with Māori, we want to be able to partner to be able to deliver better outcomes. And I've been pretty consistent on that. And when you look at the outcomes, we have work to do across the whole of New Zealand to deliver better educational outcomes, health outcomes, economic outcomes, infrastructure outcomes, crime outcomes.
Are you not going to Turangawaewae because you're worried about the backlash?
Not at all. No. I've had I've had a chance to have a really good engagement with the Māori King, which I did earlier in the week. I've had a chance to engage with several iwi leaders over the last, even since becoming Prime Minister. I've met with many physically, privately. I've had conversations and phone calls with many as well, and I will continue to do that. That's how I've always operated. That's what I'll continue to do.
Are you going to be going to Rātana and Waitangi?
Yes.
Yeah, and just on shifting gear a bit, on the getting New Zealand back on track, what's your metric for when New Zealand is on track?
Well, we'll never get there, right? We've got to keep striving really hard to keep improving New Zealand. That's what we've got to do. But our big focus is to make sure we get inflation under control so we can lower interest rates and get the economy growing again. Our big focus is on making sure we continue to drive and get better educational results for our kids. We know we want to get to 2030 with 80% of our kids ready to go to high school. We know by 2033 we want to be in the top 10 countries in PISA in terms of how our education system is working. So we're going to continue to keep perfecting our country, and that's the work that is of all governments. We want to leave this government and this country in a much better shape than what we inherited, and we've got to do that work.
Sorry, you were elected on the campaign promise to get New Zealand back on track.
And we're going to do that.
Saying that we're never going to get there.
Well, we're already starting, right? I mean, we're already starting to make sure that we are doing the actions that actually make that a reality. After 6 years where a government took New Zealand backwards on every single outcome, every single dimension, we've got work to do. And so that is hard work, but we are working our way through the tasks that in aggregate add up to make sure that New Zealand starts to realise more of its potential.
Apologies. Can we just clarify?
Sorry?
Can we just clarify that it'll be, so New Zealand is never going to be on track?
New Zealand is going to get on track. That's what we're working very hard to do. That's what our government is doing. And I think you need to understand how a government kind of works, which is we come to power, we get a mandate from the people, we put our plans in place to rebuild the economy, restore law and order, deliver better health and education. That's what we're doing.
So
Prime Minister, just on...
back on track, yes or no?
Yes, we're going to get New Zealand back on track.
And how do you measure that?
We'll know in terms of an improved economy that's actually got creating more prosperity for New Zealanders. We'll know it when our actual kids are actually competitive with kids from around the world in terms of the quality of their education. We'll know it with respect to lower levels of crime.
You gave the message to your MPs today about the need for focus.
Yep.
How important is discipline?
Well, it's always been important. I mean, I've said right from the beginning of coming to politics and taking over the leadership of the National Party 2 years ago that politics is a team sport, it's not an individual sport. And I think you've seen over the last 2 years the work that we've done in terms of overhauling the National Party, making sure we did our job as opposition, make sure we had good proposition for how to take the country forward. We've gone through that process incredibly well, and we've done it because we have formed a very effective team. I'm proud of our cabinet. I sit around that cabinet table and I look out around that room and I think we've got the right people in the right places on the right assignments with the right motivation and determination to get change away.
How worried are you that one of those team members could let the rest of the crew down?
Well, that's why we work incredibly hard, is to support each other as a team and to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make sure individuals are getting the support that they need, whether that's in how they lead or the program that they've got to lead and get out the door.
Prime Minister, in light of the resignation of Goldie's Gutterman, she obviously cited mental health issues and the stresses of the job as an explanation for her behaviour. But what are you doing as national leader to look after the mental health of your MPs?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, that's been a key part of my leadership from day one, is to make sure that we bring a caucus together that actually functions as a team, that actually supports each other. When each of us are going through tough times, we actually, the people that are going to matter are the people that are in that room. And so we've done a lot of conversation about that in our caucus meetings each and every Tuesday. Has been a big focus always about how we are as a team and what's happening with our team dynamic. A lot of what we'll spend time tomorrow will take 3 or 4 hours, 4 hours tomorrow, just going through how we're going to work together, how we support each other. Those are things that are very important. If you're going to build world-class, high-performance teams, you have to make sure you create the culture that actually enables people to be their whole selves at work, but importantly, be able to work with others in that team as well.
Do you think that Parliament is especially hard on women and people of colour?
Look, I think there are many hard work environments. What I'd say to you is we've made good progress in Parliament around culture, if you think about even in my 3-year period of being there. But I also think it's contingent upon party leaders to get the mechanisms and the tone and the support right within their own respective parties and to control the bits that they can control themselves. But we've got more work to do for sure.
Were you doing anything differently, or just sort of working within the systems that are there?
What do you mean?
Like, I don't know, are you going to introduce any new support systems or anything like that to sort of help?
Well, we have a support system within our own party, for example, as you've seen over the last 2 years. When we make sure that we've got a mix of senior leaders and new MPs buddied up, working together. We've got a whole bunch of mechanisms that we've got to make sure that we're building our own team and people feel supported.
Bridie just asked you before whether you thought it was worse, the scrutiny and the vitriol that parliamentarians get, whether it was worse for women and people of colour.
Yes, I do.
So do you think it is worse for them?
I think particularly what I've observed in terms of some of the abuse that women in particular get, I think gendered abuse is a lot worse.
Are you going to
we've
be
seen
giving
the sort
extra
of
support?
Those measures have obviously fallen short in the past, that we've seen certainly with Labour in the last couple of years. Do you not think that there's any cause for pause or cause for new systems or a different way of doing
Well, that's
things?
why I've been very supportive of the changes that we made as leader. I was completely behind, the actions of the Debbie Francis review, for example, and making sure that I put all of my caucus at 7 a.m. in the morning through, training to make sure that they were creating a culture that actually is supportive of people and that isn't abusive. And so, there's always more work to do. And culture is a function of the people that are there and the dynamic and of the leader, and actually the ambition of the leader to make sure that we can keep improving our culture. There's always more work to do, and there will be.
You've set pretty high expectations for your caucus. There's also like the long sitting hours at Parliament. There's a lot of pressure on your MPs to perform. Do you think that could negatively impact their mental health?
No. I think you've got to understand how you get the best out of teams, and we can set high ambition. We have high motivation. As you're seeing from my team, they are rearing to go, and they had a fantastic 4-week period with Parliament under urgency as we got a lot of legislation out the door and things that we wanted to get done. But you can work hard and also make sure that you look after people. They're not mutually exclusive, and so I've led a lot of executive teams and large organisations where you create culture where actually people can bring their whole self to work, and you're actually developing them and trying to get the best out of them as well. I need each of my MPs to have a better year this year than they had last year. I want everyone to lift, and so it's making sure that I'm supporting them as we do that.
Prime Minister, your speech also made much of the need to sort of embed yourself in communities, obviously your MPs to do that. Do you see that as something that fell out of focus before you became leader?
Well, I've been leader now for over 2 years of our party, but since day one, we've had very clear metrics and performance and around how we engage in our communities that we're part of. We've had a very good session again this morning about talking about how we engage with community organisations, particularly iwi organisations, and where the opportunities are for us to build relationships in that way. But it's been the same whether it's small businesses, whether it's been schools and principals, whether it's been, I just want people to do their job as a local MP, and particularly in a party that has a large number of constituent MPs.
Did you have much engagement with David Seymour and Winston Peters over the break?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've been back at work for the last, I think, 2 weeks. We had cabinet committee meetings this week where we actually actioned a whole bunch of more of our 100-day plan. I texted and had phone calls to both of them. They're in good shape, ready to go too.
And just back on the hui, do you have a message for those attending, the iwi or the hui itself?
Well, I'm very supportive of it, and we'll certainly be listening to the concerns of and the opportunities that are being raised for Māori to get better outcomes. That's what we are here to do in this government, as I keep saying to you, and we're open to that.
A question about modern slavery legislation. You've previously said that's an area you're passionate about.
Yes.
The last Labor government had started work on drafting a bill, but your Workplace Relations Minister says the government hasn't made a decision, is undecided on whether or not it'll move ahead with that. Is there any reason why you would not to get such a...
Well, we want to deliver modern slavery legislation, no doubt about it. It's a question of, in fairness, we're on a focus on our 100-day plan at the moment. That's not on there for right now, but obviously that'll be a conversation that will happen in the future.
How much urgency do you see in the area? I mean, we've been without it for a long time, Labor.
Well, we have. I mean, I personally...
Do you see it as a priority for this government?
Look, it is a priority for this government. I think, we want to make sure that we are holding ourselves to the highest possible standards around modern slavery and also worker exploitation in general. And so that initially is sort of a lot of our focus around worker exploitation and making sure that we've got really, the right mechanisms and tough provisions in place. We've got zero tolerance for that here in New Zealand, and a natural part of that would be supporting that with a Modern Slavery Act.
Is 2024 going to be the year of delivery?
Our whole government's about delivery and getting things done. At the end of the day, the New Zealand people voted for us because they want us to deliver, and the last government failed to do so. They want us to get things done, and they want us to do so with great competence and good management, and that's what we're going to do, as well as have a vision, a positive vision of how we take New Zealand forward. We have a fantastic country. It is an exciting proposition. We have a country that can be perfected, and will never be perfect, but we've got to keep pushing ourselves forward along that journey to do so.
What is 2024
the year of?
It's really about making sure we get our economy in a better shape, because we need to be able to get that economic engine, not being a two-cylinder engine, but being a much bigger engine, so we've got the capacity to make the investments we want to do around public services and also around infrastructure investment.
Year of delivery.
Delivery's in the DNA of this government, I'm telling you.
New Year resolutions?
For me, just make sure I keep my exercise regime up. I've got to keep working hard on that in the hours that I'm awake, so that'll be good. Awesome. All right, team. Thanks so much. Take care.